Have you ever watched someone being pushed aside, treated like they don't belong, only to find out that person carries a story you could never imagine? Henry had been coming to this small gun shop every week for years. He was a quiet man, with silver hair and weathered skin from decades of sun and wind. His jacket, old but clean, always had the same patch sewn on the sleeve, a patch most people didn't notice, or if they did, ignored. The shop was crowded that day, full of younger faces, mostly hunters and shooters who liked to talk loud and move fast. Henry's slow pace and quiet ways didn't fit their energy. As he made his way through the aisles, a couple of younger men near the counter exchanged looks. One whispered something, and the other snickered. "You see that old guy? What's he doing here? Taking up space?" one muttered. The other shrugged but didn't stop smirking. Henry didn't hear the words. He just moved forward, looking for a specific rifle cleaning kit he needed. His hands trembled slightly, not from age but from the weight of memories and years that didn't easily leave his bones. Just as he reached the counter, one of the young men stepped forward. "Hey, old man," he said, voice sharp. "Why don't you go home? This place ain't for you." Henry looked up slowly. His eyes were calm but held something hard to explain. A depth of experience that silenced the room for a moment. The man laughed. "What? You gonna say something? Or just stand there?" Before Henry could answer, the shop owner, a burly man, with a short temper, came over. "Yeah, Henry, maybe you should leave," he said roughly. "We got customers who actually want to buy stuff." Henry's jaw tightened, but he nodded slowly and started toward the door. Then, something happened. A man entered the shop, tall, in uniform, with the bearing of someone used to command. He scanned the room quickly, eyes landing on Henry. As Henry passed by, the general's gaze caught the patch on Henry's jacket. It was the emblem of an elite unit, one that had seen some of the toughest battles decades ago. The general froze, his eyes locked on the patch. Silence fell. The young men stopped their jeering. The shop owner's mouth opened, but no words came. Henry stopped mid-step, sensing the shift in the room. The general walked slowly toward Henry. "Is that your patch?" he asked quietly. Henry nodded. The general's face softened, a mixture of respect and something like relief washing over him. "You're Henry Jacobs," the general said, voice low but firm. Henry's eyes met his. "Yes, sir." The general turned to the others. "This man served with honor. He's no nuisance, he's a brother." The room changed. The young men looked ashamed. The owner stepped back, respect replacing his earlier impatience. Henry stayed silent, but inside, a quiet pride grew. After that day in the gun shop, Henry felt a strange mixture of relief and unrest. The cold looks from the young men were gone, replaced by silent nods of respect. But something deeper had shifted inside him, something he hadn't faced in a long time. Jason, the Marine recruit who had quietly observed Henry at the shooting, range before, found his way to Henry's side again. The young man was eager to learn, curious not just about guns but about the man behind the patch. "You have to tell me your story, sir," Jason said one afternoon as they cleaned their rifles, side by side. "What's behind that patch? What did you go through?" Henry hesitated. He wasn't used to talking about the past. Years of silence had become his shield. But looking into Jason's earnest eyes, he realized the story needed telling. Not just for himself, but for the young soldiers who might follow. "It's not a story for everyone," Henry said softly. "But if you want to listen, I'll tell you." They sat down near the firing line. The afternoon sun painted long shadows over the range. Henry took a deep breath and began. "Back in the early 80s, I was part of an elite unit, the kind you hear about in whispers, the kind that takes on missions no one else can handle. We were sent into places most people never even heard of, fighting battles that never made the headlines." Jason leaned in, captivated. "One mission stands out, the one that changed everything. We were deep behind enemy lines, tasked with rescuing hostages held in a remote village. The operation was risky, almost impossible. But failure wasn't an option." Henry's hands tightened around his rifle as he remembered. "We moved in at night. The silence was thick, broken only by distant gunfire. We reached the village, but the enemy was waiting. They had traps laid, snipers hidden, and the villagers caught in the middle. He paused, his voice heavy. We lost good men that night, brothers. I remember the faces, young, scared, brave. We managed to free the hostages, but the cost was high. Jason swallowed hard. Did it change you? He asked. Henry nodded slowly. That mission left a scar, not just on my body, but on my soul. I carried that pain for years until I realized the fight wasn't just out there, it was inside me. They sat quietly for a moment. Jason finally spoke. How did you get through it? Henry looked at him, eyes steady. By remembering why. We fight. For the men beside us, for the people who can't fight for themselves. And by passing those lessons on, like I'm trying to do with you. Jason felt a deep respect for the quiet veteran. Here was a man who had seen war's worst, yet still held on to hope and purpose. From that day, their bond grew. Jason came to the range not just to shoot, but to learn from Henry's wisdom, about honor, sacrifice, and the strength it takes to keep going when everything inside screams to give up. But the past Henry thought he left behind wasn't done with him. One evening, as Henry was leaving the range, a black SUV pulled up. Men in dark suits stepped out, their faces unreadable. They showed a badge and federal agents. We need to speak with you, Mr. Jacobs, one said. Henry's heart raced. Was this a new mission? A test? Or something darker? The agents didn't say much, but the look in their eyes told Henry that whatever was coming, it was serious. Jason watched from a distance, worry tightening his chest. Henry nodded to the agents and got in the car, knowing this was the moment his quiet life was about to change again. When Henry climbed into the black SUV that evening, he knew the quiet days at the shooting range were over. The federal agents didn't explain much, only that they needed his help on a matter connected to his old unit. As the city lights blurred past the window, Henry's mind raced back to the years he thought he had left behind, to the missions, the friends lost, and the secrets buried deep in the folds of time. The agents took him to a secure building, quiet, cold, filled with the hum of computers and the buzz of radios. Henry recognized some of the men there, veterans like him, eyes sharp but tired. The briefing began. There was a threat, they said. A dangerous group had uncovered information about Henry's old unit, information that could put lives at risk. Your knowledge, one agent said, could be critical to stopping them. Henry listened, the weight of responsibility settling back on his shoulders. After all these years, the fight wasn't over. Over the next days, Henry worked closely with the team. He shared everything he could remember, names, locations, tactics. His calm demeanor and sharp mind earned their respect, but the real challenge was inside Henry. Every detail dredged up memories of friends lost, missions that failed, and the heavy price of silence. Jason visited whenever he could, sensing the struggle Henry faced. You're carrying this all alone, Jason said one afternoon. You don't have to. Henry smiled faintly. It's not easy to let go of things that shaped you, but maybe talking about it helps. One night, Henry sat alone, staring at the patch on his jacket, the same patch that had changed everything at the gun shop. He thought about the brotherhood he'd lost and the new one he was trying to build. The threat grew closer, shadows, lengthening over their mission. Henry knew the past was no longer just memories. It was a living force, and he had to face it head-on. With Jason by his side and the team behind him, Henry prepared to confront the danger, not just for himself, but for everyone who believed in courage, honor, and sacrifice. The days after the briefing blurred into a whirlwind. Henry's quiet life was gone, replaced by urgent meetings, codes, and secrets that pulled him deep into a shadowy world. The threat wasn't just about old enemies. It was about betrayal, danger, and trust. Jason stayed close, watching Henry carry the weight of it all with quiet strength. But even the strongest carry cracks beneath the surface. One afternoon, Henry found himself alone in the range's shooting bay. the familiar sound of bullets echoing off the walls. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, trying to steady the storm inside. His thoughts drifted to the past, to the battles, the friends, the pain that never fully healed. He remembered a younger version of himself, filled with fire and hope, ready to take on the world. But war changes people. It hardens the heart. It steals peace. Yet it also teaches lessons no classroom ever could. Henry opened his eyes and looked at his hands. Steady, sure, ready. The mission ahead was dangerous, but it was his fight. That night, the team gathered in a dimly lit room, maps spread out across the table. The agents detailed their plan to intercept the threat, a dangerous cell planning an attack based on stolen secrets. Henry studied the map carefully, his mind racing through old tactics, enemy behaviors, and risks. This isn't just about stopping an attack, Henry said quietly. It's about protecting those who can't protect themselves. It's about honor. Jason nodded, inspired by Henry's conviction. As the hours passed, Henry's thoughts returned to the gun shop, to the moment the general had frozen at his patch, recognizing a story no one else saw. That memory gave him strength. The next morning, the team moved out. Henry felt the old adrenaline surge, the same rush he hadn't felt in years. The line between past and present blurred as they approached the target. The operation was tense, every second stretching like hours. Henry's training kicked in. Careful movements, silent communication, trust in the team. They breached the building where the threat was believed to be hiding. Inside, shadows shifted, and danger lurked in every corner. Henry led the way, heart pounding but focused. Suddenly a figure lunged from the darkness. A struggle erupted, quick, fierce, and unforgiving. Henry's years of experience won out, and they subdued the attacker. But the fight was far from over. The team discovered evidence of a wider plot, something that could change everything. Back at base, Henry and Jason pored over the clues, piecing together a puzzle that stretched beyond what they imagined. Henry realized that sometimes the battles you fight aren't just against enemies. They're against fear, doubt, and the ghosts of your own past. But with every challenge, there's a choice, to give up or to stand stronger. Henry chose to stand. After the operation, the tension didn't fade. It tightened like a noose around Henry's chest. The evidence they uncovered wasn't just a small threat. It was a part of something bigger, darker, a web of betrayal and danger that reached far beyond the shadows Henry had fought in all his life. Henry sat alone in his small apartment, staring at the worn patch on his jacket. That patch, the symbol of a brotherhood that had saved his life more times than he could count, now felt like both a shield and a target. Jason came by that evening, his young face marked by concern. "Henry, what's really going on? You don't have to carry this alone." Henry looked up, weariness in his eyes. "This isn't just about me, Jason. It's about the people who trusted us, the people we swore to protect. And now they're in danger." Jason sat down beside him, silent. "I remember when I first joined the unit," Henry began quietly. "We weren't just soldiers. We were family, and family sticks together no matter what." He paused, fighting back memories he had buried deep. "There was a man, a brother, who I trusted with my life. But he betrayed us. He sold secrets, put lives at risk." Jason's eyes widened. "That betrayal nearly tore us apart. We lost men because of it. And ever since I've carried that guilt. The weight of knowing someone I trusted could turn against us." Henry looked at Jason, the pain clear in his voice. "But we fought back. We stopped them. And I swore to myself I'd never let that happen again." Jason nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of Henry's words. "But this new threat, it's connected to that old betrayal. Someone's trying to finish what was started years ago." Henry's hand clenched into a fist. "We have to stop them. Not just for us, but for everyone who believes in honor and sacrifice." Jason reached out, placing a steady hand on Henry's shoulder. "We're with you," he said simply. The days that followed were a blur of planning, surveillance, and preparation. The team moved carefully, knowing the stakes had never been higher. Henry felt the weight of leadership settle on him, the responsibility not just to complete the mission, but to protect the people who trusted him. Late one night, as he reviewed intelligence reports, Henry's phone rang. It was the general and the same man who had frozen at his patch weeks ago. "Henry, we need to meet. There's something you should see." Henry agreed without hesitation. The next day, in a quiet office filled with sunlight, the general showed him a file, photos, documents, names connected to the growing threat. "This goes deeper than we thought," the general said. "And it's tied directly to your past." Henry's heart sank. But beneath the fear was determination. "We stop this now," Henry said firmly. The path ahead was dangerous, filled with unknowns and risks. But Henry knew one thing for certain. He wasn't alone. With his team, his brotherhood, and the lessons of his past, he was ready to face whatever came next. Henry's world had narrowed down to one mission: stop the threat before it tore apart everything he'd fought for. But with every piece of the puzzle uncovered, the stakes climbed higher. The team prepared for a risky move, a direct confrontation with the group behind the betrayal. Intelligence pointed to a hidden base deep in the mountains, where plans were being finalized and lives were at risk. Jason stood by Henry's side, his confidence growing with every passing day, but Henry could see the flicker of doubt in the young recruit's eyes. "Are you ready for what's coming?" Henry asked him one evening, their rifles resting beside them after a long day at the range. Jason hesitated. "I want to be, but sometimes it feels like the past is a weight pulling me down." Henry nodded, understanding more than words could say. "We all carry scars, Jason. The key is learning to move forward with them, not letting them define us." The night before the operation, Henry lay awake, memories flooding in. Faces of friends lost, battles fought, and the long road to healing. He thought about the patch on his jacket, the symbol of a brotherhood forged in fire and loyalty. It wasn't just a patch. It was a promise. The morning dawned cold and gray. The team moved quietly through the mountain terrain, every step careful, every sense alert. As they approached the enemy base, tension thickened the air. Henry's training took over. Silent. Signals, coordinated movements, trust in the team. They breached the compound with precision. Inside, a chaotic fight erupted. Bullets flew, shouts echoed, and the line between friend and foe blurred in the heat of battle. Henry found himself face to face with the leader of the group, a man from his past, someone he never expected to see again. The fight was brutal, but quick. Henry's experience won out. As the dust settled, the team secured the area and gathered evidence. But the victory was bittersweet. Henry looked around at his team, young men and women who had trusted him with their lives. He felt a deep sense of responsibility. That night, back at base, Henry sat alone reflecting. He realized that the battles we fight outside are nothing compared to the battles within, and that true courage is not just in fighting enemies, but in facing our own fears and past. Jason approached quietly. "You did it, Henry. You led us through." Henry smiled, tired but proud. "This isn't the end," he said softly, "but it's a start." The days after the mission were quieter, but Henry felt the weight of what had been lost and what had been saved. The betrayal was stopped, but the scars remained. On the surface, the world seemed calm. Yet beneath, Henry knew the battles within were far from over. Jason stayed by his side, the bond between them deeper than words. The young recruit had grown into a soldier, shaped by Henry's wisdom and example. One afternoon, Henry returned to the shooting range, the place where it all began, where the quiet old man once sat unnoticed, until his tattoo told a story no one expected. As he loaded his rifle, Henry thought about the journey. The past had chased him, but it had also shaped him. The people he'd lost, the friends he'd made, the choices he'd taken. All were threads woven into the fabric of who he was. He looked at the patch on his jacket, now worn but still strong, a symbol of honor, sacrifice, and brotherhood. A group of new recruits gathered nearby, watching him with respect and curiosity. Henry caught their gaze and spoke quietly. This patch isn't just a symbol, it's a promise. A promise to stand for what's right even when it's hard. To protect those who can't protect themselves. To carry the weight so others don't have to. He paused, letting the words sink in. Life will test you in ways you can't imagine. You'll face fear, loss, and doubt. But if you hold on to your honor, your courage, and your brotherhood, you'll never be truly alone. Jason joined him, nodding. Henry smiled, feeling a rare peace settle in his heart. Sometimes, he said softly, the quietest stories have the loudest echoes. The sun dipped low, casting a warm glow over the range. As Henry raised his rifle and took aim, he wasn't just practicing skill. He was honoring a life of service, sacrifice, and resilience. And though the battles would come again, he knew one thing for sure. The strength to face them was born not just in combat, but in the heart. Moral message: true courage isn't the absence of fear or pain. It's standing tall despite them. It's the strength to carry your scars without shame, to protect others with honor, and to never forget the bonds that hold us together. Life will test you, but it's in the quiet moments of loyalty, sacrifice, and resilience that real heroes are made.